9020. There's lots and lots of these old Dell Opltiplexes. I have another one that's a small form factor. It's not a 9020, it's a different one. But the advantage of these is they're inexpensive and they can be turned into a Hackintosh. So let me talk about the configuration of this computer on the outside, and then we'll go on the inside, and then we'll show you the what I did to make it work. So in the back, it looks pretty simple. I have I'm hooking it up to my TV with an HDMI, and I have this thing here, which is made by, hard to read that. I'll put the link. This is my Wi-Fi connector. It gives me 5G. Works really well. I get almost the same connectivity I would get if I was plugged directly in with an Ethernet port. Here, where is it? Oh, it's behind the, here you will see that little sucker right there. That is a 16 gigabyte ScanDisk USB drive, which I will explain what its job is in a moment. In the front, I have a, this is a dongle for a sort of standard kind of wireless mouse, and then this is my USB Bluetooth adapter. Okay, so those are what's on the outside. What's on the inside? Now, this computer I got for 200 bucks from these guys out in the boonies in California, and it did not look like this when I got it. So let's take a look inside. The computer is running. Okay, so this is the Dell Opltiplex, and it's a bit of an octopus right now. So the thing is, in order to get this computer to work as a Hackintosh, you have to have a good video card. Now you can go out and get a 2 gigabyte video card that doesn't require power, and I don't even want to recommend where you would get one. But this one here, you see it's got power. This one also has a, this computer has 4 data connectors. So I'm using all 4. So the computer came with a DVD and no hard drive, and it cost me 200 bucks. Why was it such a great deal? Because behind that fan is an i7 4 gigahertz processor, and I got 16 gigs of RAM. Just the cost of the processor and the RAM would be more than I paid for this computer if you were to buy it on eBay. It's also got a 500 gigabyte SSD, a new 2 terabyte, Seagate spinner, and an older 1 terabyte WD drive that I'm using for Windows. So this is a dual boot Hackintosh and Windows computer. And as you can see, there is no keyboard or mouse attached to it. Now, this is pretty cool. The main problem I had with setting this computer up was finding the correct video card. I couldn't get the people on the Hackintosh boards to give me much guidance. You cannot put a giant video card in here. I did get an RX 570 at one point, and I was able to get it in. It was a very tight fit, and that was a damaged unit. It just didn't work right, and it died. I think it had been killed by using data mining. So then I got another video card, because everybody says, get the 560. So I got a 560, but I got an XFX version of the 560. That did not work for Hackintosh. They said, well, just turn it into a Sapphire, which is what this is, with firmware. Didn't work. I had to sell that one on, because I'd had it too long and I had to sell it on eBay. And I finally got this. Now this is the whole trick of this computer, is this video card right here. Make a note of it. I will give you a link on Amazon. I found this on eBay for 90 bucks. It was used. This is the ticket. It is the Sapphire version of the Radeon RX 560. I would not buy any other video card for this computer to run as a Hackintosh. That's just it. You can't run it without a video card. It just won't work. And this video card is the bee's knees, as they used to say in the 50s. It works great on the Mac side. It works great on the PC side. If you were into that kind of thing, you could use it as a gaming computer, because there's a lot of videos about these, turning these optiplexes into gaming computers. So on the PC side, you know, it would be a gaming computer. It's got 4 gigabytes of RAM in the sucker. It does have one HDMI and one regular video port and one of these weird ports. I don't even know what they call them. But so that's the hardware. Now, when I come back, I will, let's see if I can get this thing to, let me see if I can close this up without it. No, I'll do this when I shut this off. So, again, the main thing is this video card, upgrading to the SSD for the Mac operating system. I know it's just sort of sitting there. I haven't Velcroed it. I have to get another caddy for the bottom hard drive, which is just sort of sitting on the floor. But I just got this computer up and finally running yesterday. So I'm going to go get my stand for my phone, and I'm going to do the rest of the video showing how I did the installation. How-to video on creating a Hackintosh. So we're starting off of the USB stick, and there's a bunch of choices here. If you were about to start this and you have not installed OS X already, you are not going to see all these things. You're only going to see this, and I think maybe one other thing. And this is boot Mac OS install from Olarila Mojave. So we are going to start from that. And it takes a little while for it to boot up. Don't ask me what these things are about. I do not know. I do know if you get stuck, then you're in trouble. But okay, so here's what you would do. You would do language, whatever your language is. Mine, it happens to be English. And you would go Mac OS. You would continue and agree to this giant EULA, which you're going to break because you're not installing it onto a Mac. And then you have a choice of what device you want to store this onto. So I have a 2 terabyte drive that's split into 2, and I have my Mojave disk, which is what I'm using to boot Apple off of. So what you want to do is, you can't see it, but you want to load disk utility, and you will see in view that I'm showing only volumes. You want to show all devices, which then shows you the actual hard drive. So I'm using a Samsung SSD, so I would click on that, erase it, reformat it to Mac specs, and then I would install OS X on that. So that's pretty much self-explanatory. If you've ever installed something installed operating system on a Mac, it's the same thing. There's nothing tricky about it. There's no settings. There's nothing. It just installs OS 10, and I'm not going to go through the process of doing that because I've already done it. What I'm doing right now is I had to take the batteries out of my keyboard because it kept wanting to see my keyboard for some reason when I was running this. So we're going to hit back and then back, and there's no way to back out of this. You have to turn the computer off. So I am turning off the computer at the switch and turning it back on. And see if it'll, yeah, it starts up starting up by itself. Okay, so now we installed OS 10. There's other YouTubes where they show you how to actually install OS 10. So I am going to not boot from recovery. I'm going to boot from Mojave. Now, the other good thing about this is when you restart the computer, if you've been using OS 10, it automatically selects whatever the last selection you were using to start the computer. So literally, you can start, this computer starts up without anything. It'll start, it'll boot to Mac OS 10. I have it set up to start without a keyboard, and you will see why in a minute, and it starts right up. So let's just double click. I've had a couple of redos of this video while it's booting here. You do have to go into the BIOS on the computer, and you have to set it up to run off UEFI, and you have to set it up to start off your USB, and I might show that later, but so here I am. This is a service that I use called YouTube TV. I got rid of my cable, which is costing so much money. And I got YouTube TV. It's great. It's like $50 a month. Okay, so what do we have to do here, especially for running on a TV? Well, first off, when you run off the TV, there's a problem. There's a thing called overscan, and it's High Sierra overscan was a setting, and Mojave, it's always overscan. What that means is that your Finder, all these menus are hidden. You can't see them. They're set to standard overscan. So we have to go to Preferences, and we're going to go to Displays, and it's set up to be standard. The refresh is 60, which is the highest. It's set to 1920 by 1080, which is the resolution of this TV. But you see where it says underscan. You can see where it's almost at the second hashtag. I'm not going to change it because I have it perfect. But if you go to off, you can't see the edge of the display. You see black. And if you go too far, then you lose the size of the screen. You underscan it all the way. So you don't. So the trick is you have to move this right to the point where it looks like a regular computer monitor. The other thing that I did is in users and groups, I went to login options. Oh, I don't have a keyboard. I forgot about that. Let me go back and deal with that. Okay, so this is the fun part, ladies and gents, to connect a keyboard. Now, sometimes you're lucky and it will connect, and it says it's connected, but let's take a look. Battery life, okay, it worked. If you see battery life 100, that means it's seeing your battery. Let's see if I have a keyboard. Yep, I got a keyboard. So when I start this computer, and I've been running it as a PC, it doesn't see the keyboard, and you have to pair it. If you have a problem where it's just not pairing, the trick is to take the dongle out and put it into another USB. This is a common problem with the dongles for Bluetooth. I've had other ones that are even more problematic than this one. They all have the same problem. Whatever the software is gets corrupted, and you just have to move it to another port. Anything else? I use a program called Lulu, which is a firewall. It's free. It's better than Little Snitch. You know why you need a firewall. I don't need to go explain that to you, but it works really well. It's free. I'll put a link in the description. Everything else is pretty much standard stuff that everybody uses. I use Chrome instead of Safari, and I use Firefox for my backup because my Chrome has an ad block in it, and a lot of sites won't work with ad block. So that's pretty much the Mac side of this computer, Hackintosh. It's great. The place where you get the operating system is Olarila Mojave. In order to download it, see it's just ad block. I cannot go to their site with Chrome. I have to go to it with Firefox because they're seeing my ad block and I cannot traverse it. So, because they have all these ads. Basically, you go in here and downloads, and in order to download it, let's see, it's not there. It's okay. It's Olarila images. In order to download this, you need to sign up or sign in. Won't let you do it without it. I don't download from the MediaFire or Google Drive. You could try. I use a torrent, but you can try using their MediaFire. But for some reason, those tend to not work. I got mine from here, which is a torrent, and you just use uTorrent or something like that and download it. And then they've got instructions on Olarila and how to do this, how to install it on the USB. There's a piece of software that I do not have on the computer right now that you use to burn the USB. So we are going to restart, and we are going to boot to the PC. Now, because we're going to the PC, I am now going to boot Microsoft EFI boot from EFI. I'm not going to go through the whole explanation of how to install Windows on a computer. You already know how to do that. So I'm going to just click on this, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So here we have Windows 10. As you can see, the computer started up. Didn't need a password because that was a bit tricky to do that. So what we're going to see here is that I'm not going to have a keyboard that works. I have no keyboard because I have a wireless keyboard. Now, we're going to see if I can get this to work without going crazy. And the computer still hasn't finished booting yet because I don't see the icon for the video card. So we're running off of an older spinning hard drive, so it's not nearly as fast as the Mac. because the Mac's running on an SSD. So it's still spinning. It's loaded my audio. Okay. I do not want to install that. Okay, so you can see where it says Greg's keyboard here, but when I go to this and I type, it ain't there. So just because it's connected, it's not really connected. So I have to remove the device. Are you sure? Yes. Okay, so now I'm going to turn Bluetooth. And this is a bit tricky. Can be infuriating. If you want to get another keyboard that's you can see where okay, here we go. That didn't work. Let's not worry about the keyboard right now. Okay, so this is the setup for the video card. It's quite extensive. It's set up for gaming, so if you want to play computer games on this setup, you're more than easily will run not the newest games, but it does have a 4 GB video card. It is ready to play games on it, and you can play to your heart's content. You know, I mean, you might want to put in, instead of a spinner hard drive, you can get another SSD for if you're going to be spending a lot more time on Windows. You can get an SSD, whatever size you want. If you're going to be playing a lot of video games, you would spend a little bit more money and get a 1 terabyte SSD, which are kind of expensive, but it's up to you. But what I'm showing you here is the HDMI scaling that's under the display tab, and that's where you do the same thing that I've done on the Mac, where you're adjusting it so that see, that's too much and there's too little. You can see where recycle, I don't know if you can see that, but it says recycle bin, the R is not there. So you would go down 4%. 4% shows the entire computer. Also, this version of Windows 10 that I got, I don't remember where I got it. I'm still not seeing the keyboard. It doesn't have that stupid thing where you click on all these panels to launch programs. It's set up just like this, like Windows 7 or something. I don't remember where I got this copy of Windows. I'm not going to tell you where to get your own copy of Windows. That's up to you. I would suggest, because it's so inexpensive, that you can get a legit copy of Windows with a license for about $20. And I would do it that way, because I'm not going to talk about what I do as far as like not paying for software. This keyboard is like not working. So basically, it's very difficult to go back and forth with the whole keyboard thing. I'm not going to sit here and watch me fight this. So anyway, so with the dual boot, you will eventually get a keyboard working, and you can see that I've also got like AVAS on here, and there's your Bluetooth, and there's a configuration for the Dell audio. The Dell C that I'm running a Toshiba if I was to hook up speakers to the back, it would work because it's a PC, and you could have speakers, you know, like a pair of regular like computer speakers, if you so please. If you have a microphone, it sees it. I don't have a microphone plugged in, so it doesn't see it. I wish I could show you how to reset the keyboard, but I can't. It's just not working. I think what it's seeing is my headphones and my other speaker, and they're not in pair mode, and my keyboard is just like not working. Yeah, I know it didn't work. Okay, I'm not going to bore you with this. Okay, so to go back to the Mac, I'm going to restart. If all else fails and you really need to get the keyboard to work, the best thing to do is to move the dongle for the Bluetooth to another USB slot, which is the reason why I plug it in the front. And we're in Clover. You're going to see this. It wants to start off the PC again, and I'm going to boot back into OS 10. We're going to see what happened to our keyboard, if it disconnected or not. If anybody of you guys have seen other Hackintoshes, you'll notice that this thing starts really fast. And once we're in, let's see if I got a keyboard. No. Okay, so the keyboard was disconnected. So we got to do this again. Let's go to Preferences. You see where it says keyboard and it's empty. It's because it's not seeing the battery amount. So what you basically need to do is to remove the keyboard, turn Bluetooth off, turn it back on, hold the button in on the keyboard, 422606, return, and it still is not connected. It's struggling. See, it's not seeing the battery percentage. So you can try this one more time. If it doesn't work, I'll show you what to do. Turn it back on. Hold the button on the keyboard in. 8, 6, 2, 3, 2, 0. And if it shows, no, see, it's still not showing the battery amount, so I know I have no keyboard. So here's what you got to do. You got to unplug, and it's the same problem with the PC. You got to unplug this thing. They don't have to pain in the butt. They might have Bluetooth cards. I think they did have Bluetooth PCI cards. But most of the time they use a dongle. I used to have Bluetooth PCI cards. Okay, so now, as soon as I plugged it into a different USB, I got a keyboard. So that's just one of the problems with the keyboard. And I'm sure if I would have done that on the PC side, it would have connected well as well. So that's basically it. The Dell gives you a fast computer. In fact, let's do a Geekbench. I am running 2 browsers, so it'll take a little bit of memory. I want to keep them running. So this will show you what the processor in the video card, as opposed to the processor to produce. Okay, so here we go. Look, 3955. That's pretty fast. We used to make, me and my friend used to make Hackintoshes out of these old HP workstations that were 8 core, and they were monsters, and they worked really good for a while, but there's no support for them. And when they would screw up, there was no place to go to find out what happened, and we've just backed out of those, and we're trying to switch to these optiplexes. And now that I found out what right video card to get, that we're just going to use optiplexes to make Hackintoshes. So you can see that the single core score is 174, and the multi-core score is 4,000. Again, single core is 172, is over 1,000, and multi-core is almost 4. So it's comparing it to the 27-inch Retina iMac 2019. Now, that's twice as fast as this, but that's a really fast computer. So we get down to mine. It's comparing it to a MacBook Pro running an i5 at 2.4. I think it's faster than that, because the MacBook at i5 at 2.4, that's not a very fast computer. If we want to compare it to real world, the 15-inch iMac MacBook Pro mid 2019 is a 2.6 gigahertz i7. This is a 4 gigahertz i7. The Mac Mini is 3.2. The MacBook Pro 15 from last year, which you guys know is a really expensive computer, is coming at $6441. In my opinion, it's pretty much the same, except for the architecture. Now, the reason why it's twice as fast, 8246, oh, that's running an i9. That's crazy. And that's an i9. The computers from last year, they're i9s. The iMac Mini, Mac Mini Intel Core, comparing it to that, 5740, this is better than an Intel Core i7 3.2, it's a 3.9. It's not an i9. The computers from last year that were expensive are i9s, and they're in the thousands of dollar range. I don't even know what it cost to buy the iMac 27 2019, but I'm guessing it's at least $3,000, maybe more. You can't compare it to that because it's an i9. But for most purposes, this thing really rocks, and it's inexpensive. And if you just wanted to make it a Mac, you don't need the extra storage, you could just use get an SSD. If you really don't have any money, you could just put a spinner in there, and you can still install OS X on the spinner. You can get the Seagate 2 terabyte spinner for about $50 and throw it in. I got the graphics card, new, they're like 150, 160, maybe even more. I got mine on eBay for $90 plus shipping and tax. You have to be careful when you buy something on eBay, especially these brands of graphics cards, because people have used them for data mining, and you get them and they're just shot because they've been overclocking them. The 570 that I got, I'm sure had been used for data mining and overclocking because it didn't work right. The computer was crashing all the time, and I had to send it back. Fortunately, I sent it back before it was too late, because if it was too late and I had to sell it, I couldn't have sold it. I would have to throw it away. Hopefully it's in a landfill somewhere. This is the only video card to get that I would suggest, because it works. There's no problems, there's no configuration, there's no playing around to try to get it to work. The computer works out of the box like it's a Mac, and it's great. I mean, look at this. I got all my software, and it works great. And even though it took me a long time to figure out what video card to get, I am very pleased. So that is the story of this Hackintosh. If you have any problems, let me know. Where would you buy one of these optiplexes? They're everywhere because they were standard operating procedure in banks and businesses for years, and I would assume they're out there en masse because people are switching to faster computers. And where I got this at this place last year, late last year, I would think that they probably had 200 optiplexes, maybe more, in their facility, and they were nice enough because they knew what we were doing with them. They didn't know we were doing Hackintosh, but they knew we wanted a fast computer, and they sold me one that had the 4 gigahertz, which is the fastest version of this computer that was made, as far as I know. I don't think there's anything i7-ish that's over 4 gigahertz. It's probably the max. Most of them that you're going to see are when they're i7s are like 3.5 to 3.6. That's okay. That's still a pretty fast computer. If you can't find one with the 4 gigahertz, don't worry. There were probably like 1 out of 1,000. But don't buy the small form factor ones. I have one. I'll show you. This is my 790. It is also a Hackintosh that used to be here. It's going to be used as a music computer temporarily. It works okay, but it's small form factor, which means you're limited to what you can get as far as cards. You can only get a video card that can be modified down to small form factor. I had to put a Wi-Fi card in this, and in order to do that, I had to buy a small form factor adapter. So I had to take apart the Wi-Fi card and glue in, which is no other way to do it, the bracket so I could put it in that computer. So the small ones are okay, but you know, if you're going to be doing anything heavy where you want to get at least a 4 gigabyte video card, don't mess around with the small form factor ones. It's just not cool. If you want to do just basic computing, that's great. You can get one. I'm sure you can find an AMD 2 gigabyte card that doesn't require power, because you cannot change the power supply on those. This one you had to change the power supply. It cost me about $60. And you could, if I was able to use the power supply and somehow snaggle power off of it to run the video card. I'm also running 2 spinning hard drives, and I think it's a 75 or something watt video card. You need another power supply. It's just the way it is. I know it's a bit of a pain in the butt to take the computer apart to change the power supply, but you really got to do it. The power supply that's in there is 300 watts. It's just enough to run a hard drive and maybe a 2 gigabyte video card, which, you know, that's okay. If you don't want to do video editing and you don't want to play video games and you just need a display, that's fine. But I'm not going to recommend any video card. I'm only recommending the Sapphire RX 560. So for that, we are now going to go over and out.